Pismo tenderloin into a denuded tenderloin. And this is a fairly common practice in a lot of restaurants, cleaning a tenderloin, all right? The other thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take this top sirloin butt, we're gonna isolate the center of it and remove the cap. We're gonna save the cap for Monday. We're gonna use the cap for cutlets, and then we're gonna turn the rest of it into medallions. So you can see all the rough stuff on there, right? What is this material?
Silver skin.
No, that's bone connective. Then over here, yeah, you do have silver skin too, but you see the bone connective, that's pinkish stuff? That's always on there, all right? So we gotta take that all off, we gotta clean all that up. It's gonna be a project. This project, we're gonna take this apart, so let's start. So the tenderloin Pismo has what we call the chain, or the long side muscle that runs along this edge. This one runs up like this. You can see how it just pulls off. And the chain is quite a bit tougher than the rest, only because of its connective tissue that's on it. All right, we're gonna pull that off like so. And it runs over the top of this small side muscle here. You have what's called the wing muscle, or large side muscle on this side. Right here would be the end of the tenderloin butt. So this would have been in your porterhouse steak and T-bone steak. This end you can buy as a separate, but it does have these collagen bands that run along it, all right? So cleaning this up, we take off this chain and we can peel in between these muscles a little bit. See that right there? I'll cut that off before, like that, leaving this attached. Now, what would you do with the chain?
Tacos.
Yeah, you could do it for tacos. You could do it for a sliced steak. You'd have to clean it up a bit. You know what I mean? Get all this stuff off. Some places will put it in the grind and say, you know, tenderloin burger. They're not lying, but it does have all this collagen on here. I've also seen it used in certain braises, like or stewing dishes, like beef bourguignon. It's tender once you clean it. I've taken it and pounded it. You know, you pound it out flat. And this is if you're doing a party and you got a whole bunch of them. Or if it's a regular thing on your menu, you might consider this. Pound them, save them, a bunch of them up. Then I lay ground up pine nuts and sun-dried tomatoes and garlic and basil, fresh basil, all in there. And then I roll it like this. And then skewer it, and then grill that like a pinwheel steak. And that would be tasty.
That's good. That sounds amazing.
You can even butterfly it open first. See, that's butterfly, where you get it to lay flatter. Two of them out of it. Wait, this way.
Are you hungry, Shimi?
Yeah, I do.
Obviously.
You know, you get it flatter, of course, and then you stuff it and roll it, and then ooh la la.
So flat and not square.
All right, so
So flat, not square.
now this thing, this side muscle, it's tender, but it also has a little collagen that runs along the side of it like this. You gotta just brush that out. You see what I mean by that? I'm brushing it off with the knife. I'm not really cutting, kind of pushing it off. And there is a collagen band that runs through here. Yeah, I'm trying to find that. There we go. You just take that off. So that part's all tender. All right? Then,
Juicy.
then this, we're going to take off this outer membrane. We carefully remove it by hand. So we took off the chain, took off the membrane. All right, and then get between these muscles a little bit, peel this off. Anything like this has to come off. Large chunk of fat hiding in here. See that? How it's hidden in there? All right. Now, once this is trimmed down to this level, then you see the silver, right? See this collagen over the top? All of that's got to come off. So the collagen, I'm just cleaning up the edge here. The collagen is directional when you take it off. You always start from the tail and you go to the head. Tail to head, tail to head. Always that direction. If you go the other way, it's the wrong direction. You'll see it in a second. I'm just trimming off this little fat though. That's actually a sign that it's a really high quality meat. If there's fat on top of the silver on a tenderloin, because it tells you that there's marbling inside too. And the tenderloin usually doesn't have much marbling unless it's like really good meat. And remember, we graded it. It was prime. So this is really good meat. Now, before I do that, I do this. This is how I steal my knife. You were taught go down one side, down the other. I don't do it like that. I go like this. And then I go like this. Not like this. Okay. Tuck the knife just under the silver. Create some tension. Push the knife through, nice and smooth. Then clip it from the back. Super clean. Now, what are you going to do with the tenderloin? What's your dish that you're going to create with this tenderloin?
Filet mignon.
Yeah, filet mignon. Absolutely. Nice medallions or tornadoes. You know, very expensive medallion steaks. You could roast it as well. Sometimes they'll slice it thin, raw, and serve it as carpaccio. And if you're doing it as carpaccio, you have to make sure that there's no connective. You know, it has to be super clean. I mean, when people order tenderloin, they expect tender, you know. They want to see really tender meat. So get all this stuff off. And then between the muscle here, there's a little bit. Brush that out. Now we're going to flip it over. There we go. That's clean on the top side. Now we flip it over. And on the bottom side, we have these, again, connective tissues. There's a little bone connective where it was attached to the hip bone. Make sure you get those off. You know, collagen is tough, but bone connective is even tougher. And if that's left on there, that will not break down at all. Then we see these chunks of fat, right? Shave those off too. They call them the shingles.
Isn't that like a skin disease?
Yes. Yeah, that's another whole situation. Caused by chickenpox. Remove those fat chunks. Right? Now it's pretty well cleaned. So now we flip it back around. There's our yield, you know what I mean? We have some unusable for sure. And we have some usable trim that we could use. But it's an expensive thing to clean a tenderloin. You know, tenderloin, by the time you clean it, it's almost $1 an ounce. It's expensive. All right, now, we can tie it, and we can turn it into portions. If we tie it, we could roast it. We might tuck the tail underneath like this. All right, we can also cut it into steaks. If you're cutting it into steaks, you could take off the side muscle here, like this, and roll this around in some plastic wrap. Excuse me. And then cut it into portion. We could also push it together like this, and then cut it into portion, all right? But the trouble here is you have that gap, right? So what some places are doing, and portion cutting places are taking and placing what we call transglutaminase in there. Transglutaminase is an enzyme that breaks down the muscle fiber and then allows it to be recombined. In other words, like a glue.
Is it Activa?
Yeah, Activa is the brand name, and
Oh, it's a brand name.
it's Activa is a brand name. It's made by a company called Ajinomoto. And Ajinomoto is a major processed food producer from Japan. If you ever watched the movie The Witness, it's about price fixing in food markets by ADM, Archer Daniels Midland, and Ajinomoto. They got busted and back in the 1990s early. And had to pay a huge fine.
So the enzymes.
That's a little story about the company that makes this.
So name of the enzymes. What's the name of the enzyme?
So let's talk about it.
So what's the name of the enzyme?
So the way it works is it breaks down the muscle fiber and then allows it to be reconnected. I love that sidebar story. Now we'll take this off.
3 ounces too.
Then we're going to go like this and like this. We take this, brush in the center, and make a medallion.
Oh.
See that? Now the problem is what? It's got a gap, right? So then you take the Activa, which is a white powder, tasteless.
Dust it.
You cut a bag off. I've had this for a while. This is from 2014, but it's in the freezer and it's sealed, so it lasts
It's
forever.
the yeast. It's just the enzyme.
And then you take it and sprinkle it in. Now you should wear gloves. Why? Because it's toxic? No. Because you're gluing the outside into the inside.
Oh yeah, true.
You know what I mean? So it's a cross-contamination issue. So you swizzle it around a little bit. Like that. And it'll be a perfect steak. Hand me the plastic wrap that's up there.
Chef, what's the name of the enzyme?
Transglutaminase. Transglutaminase. It glues it together.
So when it's like glued back together, that's called medallion.
Yeah, this would be a medallion.
So if I see a medallion on the menu, I'm getting that, right?
Well, not necessarily. You're getting a perfect slice out of this.
Okay.
Sometimes you'll get this if I'm selling you meat.
Sweet.
Purveyors are using this now.
That was okay.
A
It's
lot
just a
of
way to get
purveyors
one.
are using it.
I mean, that's getting one extra entree out of.
Yeah,
the
which is a
tenderloin.
lot of money when you talk about this. So you can buy it and use it, or you can buy what they call bonded tenderloins. A bonded tenderloin would mean that it's actually glued together. And you can ask if your tenderloins are bonded or your portion cuts are bonded. Now, chefs are using this at the high-end level, like this, and maybe like this, where what we were just doing before. You know, they're taking things like this and pounding it, stuffing it, rolling it. You know what I mean? And then where they're sealing it, they put a little bit of the glue, and that holds it together. You know what I mean? They're using it like that as a way to create a nice looking portion. You know what I mean? You would glue that shut, and that would be that. But the industry is using it sometimes, you know, as a false thing, and just taking a bunch of this stuff,
Making the steak.
and you make a mistake, you know what I mean? Like, just glue all this together, and we have a steak. You know what I'm saying? Like, so will all this glue together? Well, let's see.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? We'll take a look at this tomorrow.
It takes one day to glue together.
Yeah, it takes about 6-8 hours
Amazing.
for it to work properly. I do it overnight.
I really don't know how I feel about that.
So, my job is not to tell you to use it. My job is to show you how it works and what it is. And then you make your decision about whether you use it or not.
It's just enzyme. You have a lot of enzyme in your body.
I don't want to add more. I'm good.
It's originally created.
Tell us how you really feel, Shimmy.
You know what? It's
I
about
think
time
it's-
I say this. I don't know.
What do you say?
I don't know how I feel about it.
You need to know about it so you can understand it,
Definitely.
and then you can also see it. You know, people make up their own minds about it, and everyone has their opinion about it, and I think that's what my job is so that you can have an informed opinion about it. You know what I mean? Is it a cheat or is it a good thing? That's for you to decide. I have my own opinion about it, and I don't let you know what that is, because that's not my job. My job is to show you what it is. All right?
I think it depends. Like if you lie and call it something it's not, or if you just get creative, make it something else.
Meat.
Right. So that's for you to decide.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I've seen it used in a restaurant called Craigie on Main, outside of Boston. It's an excellent, excellent restaurant. They do incredibly inventive stuff. I've also seen this kind of thing. Yeah, it's a good extern site if you live out that way.
In the restaurant that I worked at, we would take the meat glue and we would basically make like a seamless chicken roulade. With like
Yeah,
a
exactly.
truffled mushroom dip salad
That's
in the middle.
exactly what I was gonna say. I've seen it taken with chicken, roll it perfectly. I've seen a salmon steak where it's cut straight across the body and they take out the bones and then they glue it and it's like perfect salmon steak without bones. It does work on fish.
Is it cheap or expensive?
It's fairly expensive. A kilo is about $100. So it's not cheap.
We just use like $10 or
No,
White powder.
no, I didn't use $10. Not
So
even
what's that
$1.
white powder in your room?
Yeah, don't give it to
When
me.
the RAs find it, it's just great.
Keep it in your glove.
It's just great.
No, it's me glue. Don't taste it.
Put your mouth shut.
Alright.
What
Well, that
happens
might
if you
not
put
be a
that in
bad
your
thing,
body?
Oh, you are.
So they
have-
cut
you
yourself
already
and
have
put
it in
that
your
in
body.
It was originally made for burn.
You have that in your body.
Yeah, you have this. What it does on you is it.
We
Well,
needed that for
we're
me.
almost done. It turns. What it happens in you is it turns your wound. It closes your wound.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So, chef, if I come in here with a cut, can I sprinkle
They
some of
actually
that?
do use it in the medical field at different
Just,
forms.
just suffer through it.
Now,
This is some BC powder.
We got to talk about portion
Some
cutting.
BC powder on your oats.
We're running out of time really fast here. I always run out of time because I got a lot to talk about.
Sorry, listening.
So what we're gonna do now is this. This piece is the top sirloin butt, right? So we're gonna take this and clean it up. We're gonna take off the cap. The cap is known as what we call the culotte muscle. You understand this stuff? You understand cleaning the tenderloin?
Yes,
Okay, good. Let's go on to this. The cap is the culotte muscle. And that's this piece right here. So we're gonna cut through like this.
Oh, I could sleep to that.
It's like they use in the horror movies. Sound effects like this. And then I'm sitting in the back going, oh, it sounds like they're taking about a top sirloin bun. And everyone moves away. I don't go to horror movies. I can't stand that stuff. So gross.
But you're a butcher.
Yeah. Look, I've seen it all. You know, when you kill a pig or a chicken or something, it's like, ugh. It's disgusting. Why would I want to go for entertainment of that?
But usually in the horror movies, the murderer is a butcher.
Oh yeah.
No. Usually in the horror movie, the murderer is some psycho. Who wants to see people like this?
Psycho butcher.
I can look at them in the subway. I don't need to go to a movie. It's terrible. Movies should be fun. Woohoo!
I give my kid a new tune because SpongeBob SquarePants.
That's for kids.
My dad watches SpongeBob and he is 66 years
My kid,
old.
my kid love it.
Alright.
That's for kids.
Don't think it's for kids.
It was for kids 20 years ago when it started.
Is it? It's not 20. Is it?
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Look, that's the cap. You can buy the cap with the fat on the outside, or you can buy it cleaned off. That's called the picanha also. The beak. It's very tasty.
How can we use it?
You would grill it, slow and low, but grill it, not moist cook. Or you can cut it into portion steak. You grill the whole thing and then slice steak it. We're gonna turn it into cutlets
Can we put a
on
second?
Monday. We're gonna save that. So when you vacuum pack this, you're vacuum packing this whole, and we're gonna call that 4 cutlet. All right. On the label, right? 4 cutlets. All right. Not 4, but FOR. Used 4 cutlets. Now the rest of this is the sirloin center. And the sirloin center is really quite a good piece. Except it has this. The top sirloin butt is fairly reasonable. Price-wise, it's really pretty cheap. But the problem with it is it requires some work to get it nice. You know what I mean? You see all this stuff needs to come off. This would take some time in the kitchen. Whoever does this, you know, may come in early in the morning. All right, get the steaks prepped. Clean 4 or 5 top sirloin butts. Clean 2 strip loins. You know what I mean? That's somebody's job. Or the chef's job. You know, as a chef owner, I did all that stuff myself. I wouldn't let just anybody touch that stuff. You know, you'd have to have somebody with some good knowledge. This little flap here, this comes off. See that little piece? That's tough. That's called the mouse. I don't know, maybe fajita steak. There you go. Like that steak we tasted out there. Cheap steak. Then you have this. There's, you could divide it now. It's pretty much ready to go, but you have this piece here. This piece is really tender, and there's a collagen band that's holding it in. So if you leave it in there, you end up with this collagen on the inside. But that's a super tender piece. It doesn't have a name. You can name it, but there's only, you know, there's only this on the whole animal, like this, and one other on the other side. So it's not really enough. You know, what would you do with it? Maybe turn it into steak tartare, or even carpaccio. It's thinner, you know, tender enough you could do carpaccio out of it. Without doing tenderloin carpaccio, you could do this. You know, like super thin.
It's in a powder, right? Powder.
Yeah, you would get even thinner. When you pound it, you get it like paper. You can see through it. Or, you know, a hot pot, something like that.
Hot pot with chef.
You know, that's excellent piece for that. It's like super tender. All right.
I need steak that's done in your room.
You understand it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. No.
Super tender. All right, now, the rest of this, we divide through here. And this piece, right here, this is known as the baseball steak. I don't know why they call it that. It's one of those weird things that they gave it a name to. But there's a natural seam that separates it. See the seam? And then you have the collagen that sits on the inside. Once you take that collagen off, this piece is super tender, almost as tender as tenderloin. It's got a really nice flavor, and you can make a wonderful medallion out of it. That's one of the things you used upstairs when you were up there. How would you get this to look like this? How would you get this to look like this? Cut it in half, exactly. So we're going to cut it in half, and we're going to shape it, trim it a little, and get medallions out of this side too. Right? Trim the edge a little bit, round it off the edge, square it, and that is that.
Beautiful.
So baseball steak is that piece traditionally, but you know, all of this could become baseball steak. The trouble is trying to shape these pieces and not lose too much in the shaping. I could also roast that for two as a Chateaubriand, like you would a tenderloin. That'd be an excellent, excellent roast. All right. So that's the top sirloin butt. Then we have this. This strip loin. We're gonna cut this for steak. Whose was this? Was this yours? Such a nice job. You have to understand, as a chef, you make art, and then less than 5 seconds later, they take the art and they cut it all up with a fork and knife.
Yeah. And then after one night.
And then you make the art again and again, hopefully, if you're busy.
That was actually really graceful.
And the memory keeps forever.
Yes, no. The memory lasts till they're hungry again. And then they go, oh, what did we have last night? Oh yeah, that was good. Should we go back there again? No, we're going to the other place. Oh, it's owned by the same chef.
McDonald's.
No.
It's a franchise.
Poison. All right, so this was the certified Angus one. This one I'm going to cut into a steak like this, right? This one we're going to take and we're going to turn it into medallions like this. All right, how would we do that?
Cut it in half.
Actually, this one's a little bit smaller than this one, so we'll take this one and cut it in half. All right, but before we cut it in half, we have to take off all the fat
All the fat.
Why?
because we're making a medallion.
There's no fat.
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
lose a little bit more.
You should know by now.
Dumb.
And we also have the vein end here. Right? Remember the vein steak? And we have this lip. See this lip here? That needs to come off. So if we're gonna make medallions out of this strip line, we do lose a little bit more, you know? We could maybe leave that lip on.
Don't you potentially get more portions though?
But you'll get a lot more portions, exactly. So it's a little bit of a sacrifice in the beginning, but then you'll get more portions, and they'll be smaller. You know, typically, here, let's explain that. I size this up, I hold my palm here, I cut my steak. Here's my portion steak, right?
Didn't eat that. Let me just shake it.
Always paper or something on the thing, right? So that's about a 10-ounce steak, right? No, wait. There, that's an ounce. Yeah, it's a 10-ounce steak. So that's a nice steak. Typical steak, right? If I cut this in half, right? Now I'm going to cut it right down the middle. Here we have the vein end. Take that off first.
Oh, gosh.
That much.
Now that's a steak.
So why do you cut so much?
Well, no, I'm going to turn that into 3.
No.
2, 3 or what?
What's it for?
3 medallions. Maybe not 3.
2
Maybe 2. But this part I'm going to use for something else.
burger.
Yeah, don't say no, because you could. So. I'm not throwing it out. I don't throw anything out.
I'm gonna take all the bag and trash out. Put the trash back to my door.
What? Nice medallion. Right? That's not even 8. So that's 10. That's not even 8. You know, ideally I want them
Looks
about
bigger.
6 ounces. And that looks bigger. And it's going to be able to cook to medium rare. You see the difference? You charge what you charge.
Well,
No.
you can at least charge the same, but
Right.
for less.
For less, exactly. Exactly my point. Now, not every place is going to be able to do that. This right here, this would be called the New York strip steak. All right, and you're going to put New York strip on the menu. It's a good seller. It's a big piece. People expect that size. But this, I can call what? A strip loin medallion, you know, a beef medallion. And they don't know. They might even think it's tenderloin if I, you know. I mean, I don't want to say it's tenderloin and lie. That's deception. That's not a good thing. But, you know, certainly a nice beef medallion like that with a beautiful sauce, you know, they're gonna love it.
Let's go with certified Angus beef medallions,
Yeah.
$40 special.
And some places would even call them a sirloin medallion, even though it's strip loin. That's okay. If it sells it, it's not really being deceptive. You're using the English terminology, which is true. That's what they call it in England. That would be the sirloin. So you call it a sirloin medallion and sell it for a lot. All right? You were supposed to do this today, do these portions. So what we're going to do is do this on Monday. All right, so everything that's here on this table right now, we're gonna bag up and write 4 portion and put